our speaker on the Saints today. Writes on the Saints for sportsNOLA.com. He also works at WGSO 990 AM, and of course he coached for many, many years at Chalmette, Rummel, Monomoy, St. James, and Tulane University as well. Please give a warm welcome to Rick Gaille, the coach. Rick.
I feel very bad for Derlin, but I'm happy to be here today and have a chance to speak with you because of all the topics. I've had a chance to touch on all of them. Coached at Rummel when Jeff was there, and kept trying to get, I was coaching the offensive line, I kept trying to get the more athletic people on offense, but Easton Roth wasn't going for it. Even though I think we did practice you some on goal line offense. Worked with Frankie at Tulane in 1982. I coached at Tulane in 82, 83, and 84. And I've also was for 19 years, at least, involved in high school game management. So I understand very much all the sides of that. In fact, I had not remembered our policemen being escorted from the stadium in St. Charles until I was reminded with that today. But the officials were all okay and the game went on. That's how it's supposed to work, isn't it? There's some specific rules, and that's going to be very interesting to see how it develops going forward, because it is absolutely logical to realize that if you're having a game, the officials have to be in charge. Like, duh, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. That's how it has to be. And everything in that stadium has got to be supportive of the players and the officials running the contest. That's supposed to be the center of things. And what we're supposed to be teaching as adults, and what football is supposed to be teaching, and can teach better than anything else, is that regardless of what goes on, you've got to keep playing. We tell the kids that all the time. Doesn't matter if it's a good call, bad call, if the weather's good, if things are going against you, if the opponent's better than you, if you're better than them, or whatever, you just keep putting the ball down, lining up, and going and playing. But yet here's adults that can't figure that out. Now we've got a dispute over here on the sideline, so of course we've got to take 20 minutes and come up with that nonsense. But that's a story for another day. And now that I'm in the media, I get to look at it from a little different perspective. And if anybody screws up, I will let you know. Just read sportsNOLA and turn into WGSO, and you'll get the latest on that. Looking at the Saints game, whenever I'm evaluating a game, that's what I spend my time on. I'm not a reporter. I try to look at what happened and be able to describe in at least complete sentences, and that's what takes me the longest amount of time, is complete sentence idea, of why and how something happened. In every story, there's who, what, where, when, why, and how, and that's what a reporter is supposed to do. Well, reporters do a great job of who, what, where. Sometimes the when they do great jobs with, but they're not very good in the why and the how, and that's my role in this whole thing. So in starting my analysis this week of what happened with the Saints and the Patriots, every week the first thing I write at the top of my notebook, and I still take notes on everything: no blame, only reasons. Responsibility, not excuses. It drives me absolutely stupid when I listen, because I listen to try to listen to as many things as possible. When I tune into the radio on Monday morning, and the first topic of conversation is, well, whose fault was it? Who are we blaming? Who should have been doing this? Trying to place blame on somebody. And that's what a fan does. If you're on the radio, you're in the media, you should be looking for blame. That's obvious. It's obvious that Jabari Greer was there at the end of the game and the ball went over his head. Okay, that doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. But why was he, the bigger question is, why was he there by himself in that situation? Could he have done anything differently to change the course of action at that time? And yeah, there's something that, if I have time, we'll talk about some technique that's not used in the NFL or even college football that perhaps can help solve that. So no blame, only reasons. Responsibility. Responsibility meaning to be answerable. Response able. You're able to choose a response, not excuses. So in looking at this, I've got the play-by-play here for the last 2 minutes and 46 seconds of the game, because all the Saints needed to do, and I just used a term I really don't want to use. Whenever somebody starts a sentence with me with, All you have to do is, I don't listen to them anymore. Because there is no such thing as all you have to do. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if you take something from somewhere to do something, you're taking something away from somewhere else, and you've got to balance all of those things. Usually when somebody starts a sentence with all you have to do is, and I ask them to go through specifically all you have to do is, if they have 13 players on defense, they can be really good. But they can't do it with 11, because there's always a trade-off somewhere. The Saints needed to use up another 10 seconds somewhere, and they win the game. And there were a couple of opportunities in order to do that. To begin with, in the drive that led to the final Hartley field goal. And remember that, as good as the Patriots are supposed to be, they gave up a touchdown on the 3rd and 20 against two-man coverage, and they had two guys covering the guy, and they still scored a touchdown. So even geniuses sometimes can get beat deep. But okay, 2 minutes and 46 seconds, 2 running plays, 2 timeouts immediately. So now the Saints have a 3rd and 7 at the 21. End up throwing an incomplete pass. New England does an incredibly good job in special situations of making you as an offense take the most difficult route. So what they were able to do on that play is play a coverage where the only avenue in throwing the ball, if you're going to do a drop back pass, was to throw the most difficult ball, to throw a deep fade to the left, to the offense's left. And it wound up being incomplete. Yes, the Saints got a field goal out of it, but what that ended up doing was allowing New England to save that 3rd timeout. And later on, as we will see, that cost the Saints 10 seconds because they did not have to call the timeout at that time. What ends up having to happen, as we will see, because immediately after that there's an interception. At that point, the New Orleans defense thought they had the game won. You could see them celebrating on the sideline. You could see the difference in their facial attitude. I try to look a lot at the psychology of it and what happens with their facial projections to see what they're thinking at the time. They thought they had it won at that time. And what the Saints needed to do there was decide whether they were going to make a first down or not. Really the series before that. But in those 2 series, their first decision was in their 4-minute offense, am I going to make a first down or am I just going to settle for running as much time off the clock as possible? If you decide that in that next series at 2 minutes and 16 seconds, New England still had 1 timeout. If you decide that you have to make a first down, you really shouldn't wait till 3rd down to throw the ball. The throws come on 1st or 2nd down, always off of play action. And if there's nothing there, the ball does not get thrown away. The quarterback keeps the ball, tries to get back to the line of scrimmage if he can. If he can't, you take a sack, and then you run the ball. Take your shot in the early downs, not in the late downs. They decided that they were going to just try to run clock in that second series after the field goal starting at 2 minutes and 16 seconds. So instead of being able to run a play and get to the 2-minute warning, they run a play, takes 6 seconds, New England calls a timeout. So now there's 2 minutes and 10 seconds left. There's the magic 10 seconds that would have gone away if they'd have run the ball on the previous series. Once again, the decision has to be, am I going to go for a first down or am I going to run as much clock as possible? And going back to the 3rd down play where there was a deep incomplete pass, there's no question that the Saints, that Sean Payton especially, had to know that that was the only throw that they were going to give them. They knew that. They know each other so well. They're brilliant people. They knew, had to have known before the 3rd down play, the incomplete pass to Colston, that was the only throw that New England was going to give them. So they were having to go going for a score there. The other thing, if you're going to run clock, you don't run the ball directly downhill. You've got to try to run outside plays. That takes 1 or 2 more seconds to run the play. If the clock, now it's not so much of a factor like it was in high school in doing that, because it would take the officials a long time to get the ball. If it's outside the numbers, get it back to the hash mark and spot the ball. In fact, we used to practice when I was in high school a run out the clock play. and we would get an unbalanced line, and we would run to the wide side of the field, and it was the quarterback's job to get outside the numbers, outside the other hash. Everybody would block down, the fullback would lead him around. It was his job to get outside the numbers, outside the opposite hash, and then fall down. So now everybody's over here on this hash. Picture this, I'm the quarterback, I run over. Everybody's over here. Now everybody's got to run over there, go get the ball, and what we would tell the player is this. And all teams practice this kind of stuff. This is the one time you do not hand the ball to the official. Because our players at St. James, at the end of every play, would hand the ball to the official, would never leave it on the ground. Number one, we wanted to show the official we had the ball. And number two, that's like the courteous thing to do. They don't have to chase it around. If not just stating it factually, I'm not in good enough shape, and many of y'all aren't either, to chase a ball rolling around on the ground. It's a lot easier to just hand it to you. But anyway, he would get outside the numbers, and this would be the one time that we would leave the ball on the ground. So he'd run all the way outside the numbers. Everybody had to go over there and chase it and go find it. The ball's rolling around on the ground. The ball had to get picked up, brought back to the hash mark. All of that uses more time. Now in the pros, the clock starts as soon as you hit the ground, so that's less of a factor. But on 3 plays, if you run wide plays that take 1 or 2 more seconds, and you do it for 3 times, you're talking about from 3 to 6 seconds. So there's 13 to 16 seconds we're talking about right now. The game is over. And not lastly, but the next one is when Keenan Lewis did not tackle the ball carrying back. That was critical. Critical. And you let Brady get you on that one, because he's supposed to spike the ball out. But saw the coverage was loose, just dumped the ball out there. The receiver was surprised. Whoa, what's this? And then had a chance to keep pulling him in bounds and just hold on till the posse got there. But he went ahead and went with the ball carrier to get him on the ground, and he landed out of bounds, and that saved another 10 seconds. And there's the game. Something I'll be interested in studying as we go forward. The Saints only had 5 defensive backs on the field that whole series. They never went with 6 or 7 because I don't know who was injured at the time. I didn't have a chance to see that. The Saints had 3 linebackers on the field. They did not play prevent the whole time. First play they rushed 4, second 3, third play they rushed 5. They brought 27 off the corner. So they brought 5 people that time, then rushed 3, and on the touchdown play rushed 4. So, but they still had 3 linebackers in the game, 50, 53, and 57. All 3 of them were in the game. So I'm going to have to study that a little bit more and find out who was available, who wasn't, because the Saints have upwards of 7 or 8 defensive backs. In fact, last week against Chicago, they played a 4-row defense. We call it dollar. 5 defensive backs is nickel, 6 is dime, 7 is quarter. His quarters are dollars in some cases, but they must have had somebody hurt, or they would try to disguise some things or change the pressures up a little bit. What they did do, though, there's 2 kinds of aggressiveness. It's never all there is. There's 2 kinds of aggressiveness. You have a physical aggressiveness and a scheme aggressiveness. Scheme-wise, the Saints were aggressive enough. Where the Saints lost it is that they lost their physical and psychological aggressiveness. And it goes back to the celebration after the interception. I wonder why coaches get paranoid about stuff, playing to the last play and all of this stuff. We get, because when they went back on the field the last time and Brady hits the first pass, you could see it in their faces on the TV copy. Uh-oh, we can lose. That was the first time it hit them. And boy, you could see it in a person's face when that happens. It looks like deer in the headlights. Boom, and all of a sudden, oh God, we were just playing before, and now we could lose. And then you become a step slow. In that league, a step is big. A step slow, a second slow, and you wind up being an inch slow. And that's all that it takes in that league for that to happen. So that's my brief analysis of what happened with the Saints. Once again, I'm sorry that Derlin went down to give me this opportunity, but I appreciate being here with you. If you have any questions, I know we got to keep moving on. Yes, ma'am.
I thought, so, when we were down running for the field goal, and it was 3rd and 7. Why even throw the ball at that point? You're already in field goal range. You're going to make them take time out. To me, that was the key to the ball game, because you're already in field goal range.
Yes, and that was one of the points that I was trying to make. You have a very valid point there. And the decision has to be, not only are you going to throw it, but what kind of throw you're going to make, or that, play action perhaps, but then with the idea that if it's not there, I'm going to keep the ball. The worst thing in my mind, and I think you may be thinking alike here, which could be dangerous to the history of Western civilization, is the last thing you want to do is try to throw the ball deep where you have a less than 50% chance of success, and you save that third time out for New England. And as I showed later, that cost the Saints 10 seconds.
It did.
What else?
Don't you think that the Saints sort of lost their, you pointed out things very accurately, but they sort of lost their aggressiveness too at the end of the game, whereas Belichick kept being aggressive.
Yes, that's it, and that's exactly how I was trying to state it, that the Saints scheme-wise were aggressive enough, but psychologically and physically were not aggressive enough, especially psychologically. They completely lost their aggressiveness. I agree with that 100%. They did not maintain that. Yes, sir.
My understanding that Jabari Greer is 5 feet 9 inches tall. Don't you think that the 5'9" cornerback in that league has seen its day because of so many tall, wide receivers now?
Yes, and you said the question is the era of the 5'9" cornerback over? Yes. 5'9" players now play safeties. Corners have got to be 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", and you're seeing that trend more and more in the league because you can't defend 6'2" to 6'5" wide receivers, and that's what you're getting now in the NFL. 6'2" to 6'5" wide receivers, 210 to 220, 225, and it's very, very difficult for undersized people. So now 5'9" people becoming safeties. We're seeing a transition to more athletic safeties, smaller, quicker type safeties, and bigger corners. Jabari's only chance, and this is a technique that this might just be wishful thinking. In the NFL now, for the first time, has adopted the rule that the receiver must come down in bounds. There's no such thing as a force out anymore. So theoretically, a defensive back can catch a receiver and carry him out of bounds and drop him out of bounds, and it's an incomplete pass. I think a technique that has to come out of this is that if I'm playing defensive back, I'm going to play the back shoulder of every receiver, make the ball go over the top. When he jumps up in the air to catch the ball, I'm going to grab him at the waist and carry him out of bounds and drop him. Jabari Greer trying to play the ball yesterday was really on the short end of the stick. It was a beautiful throw and a great catch to where he had no chance at making the play on it, but he did have the opportunity because he only had to push him a yard at the most. If he could push him or grab him, and you're not grabbing the full weight of the receiver because he's airborne. So there's a technique. I think eventually it's going to have to be developed at both the collegiate and the pro level that shorter people can handle that by carrying the receiver out of bounds.
On that last play there too, my thought was, why not just grab it and have interference? Because you've already knocked 5 seconds off, so you're going to get the ball on the 2-yard line.
Yeah, it would be at the 1 in pro football. But yeah, no. I would suggest that anything but what he did was the right thing. And I can say that now. 3 years ago, I couldn't say it, but I thank Ken, thank all of you. It's a pleasure seeing you.